Welcome to the latest edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm John Gonzalez alongside our NBA insider, Bill Reiter, who was kitted out per usual in his Barca gear. Big Copa match against Atleti today, Bill.
Let's go. He's good Barca. Come on.
He's
no Russell Westbrooks today. Let's keep our heads.
We're going to get into that. We had a whole show planned today where we're like, it's the NCAA tournament. We're going to bring on Adam Finkelstein and Kyle Boone, our draft experts, to discuss the risers and fallers going into the draft, coming out of the NCAA tournament. We were excited. We had this whole thing going. We should have known better, Bill, because the NBA was like, no, we're going to have the craziest night of the season. And so we've scrapped that. We'll do it next week because too many fun things happened last night. We have to discuss it. The Timberwolves, by the way, that sales official, we'll get into that. Steph Curry went for almost a 52-point triple-double last night, Bill. Normally, we would start with that. The man hit 12 threes, but no, because we had probably the game, I don't even think probably, the game of the season last night. The Wolves squeaked past the Nuggets in Denver by 1 point, 140 to 139 in double overtime. Now, no MPJ, no Jamal Murray, no Naz Reid, no Dante DiVincenzo. Didn't matter. Kevin Harlan called it a masterpiece afterwards, which it was. 3 dozen lead changes and ties. You just mentioned Russ. At the end, they're up 1. The Nuggets are up 1. In transition with the shot clock off, at the end of the game in double overtime, he goes for a transition layup and bricks it instead of just dribbling the clock out. And then to compound his error, Bill, he fouls Nickeil Alexander-Walker on a 3 at the buzzer. What happens? The Wolves win.
Russell Westbrook and his double overtime, double debacle literally cost double overtime, double debacle cost Nikola Jokic, the win that should have accompanied one of the greatest performances I've ever seen. By the way, against an Anthony Edwards performance that was slow starting, but starting the fourth quarter and through the 2 overtimes was as good. I mean, it was, and Jokic should have gotten the best of that matchup.
Joker was absolutely outrageously good last night, again, on a night when he didn't have two of the 5 starters weren't out there. So it was a lot of heavy lift for him. He had a 60-point triple-double, Bill. He went for 61, 10, and 10. He shot 62% from the floor and 60% from 3 in 53 minutes. He was everywhere at all times. And yeah, Russ screwed it up for him. Now, afterwards, Mike Malone defended Russ, and so did Joker. Joker notably came to his defense and was like, look, these things happen. You know, he was a big reason why we were even in the game, whatever. But yeah, I'm with you. You're doing a little cringe face right there.
Oh, no, man. Here's the thing. It's and I no MPJ, no Jamal Murray, as you noted. It's such a perfect encapsulation of the fact that Jokic is capable, and I think that's one of the takeaways. He is capable of carrying this team much deeper than we might expect, but that he'll have to do it with albatrosses strapped to his shoulders that should actually be helping him. I mean, I know it's a one-off, but it's such a perfect encapsulation of what Jokic is working against on his own team.
Russ lost the game for them 2 different. What's the bigger bonehead mistake? I was asking Aaron this before you popped in.
Oh, it's a good question.
Is it the bigger mistake not knowing time and circumstance where you just look up and you go, oh, the shot clock's off. We've got the ball. I just got a big steal. All I have to do is dribble this thing out. If they found me, we'll play the foul game. But I could probably dribble this thing out and we win the game. Or fouling Nickeil Alexander-Walker on that 3 at the end when you're still up 1.
I mean, this is a pretty big boneheaded play. This is like asking me Jordan versus LeBron. It's hard to answer. They're both incredible. In this case, incredibly awful. I will go. And by the way, not just didn't just suck out all the time that he could have by just dribbling the clock out or coming close. Misses a layup. Misses the layup.
Yeah.
I'll go with that one. I'll go with that one. I mean, dude, just there's no one around him either. Just go back and just pass the ball a couple times.
Pass it, dribble it around, play the foul game. I mean, that was an all-time Russ boneheaded maneuver. But that said, the game was incredible. And as you noted, Joker was everywhere, and he was supernova, and like it was such a command performance by him that it was once again a reminder that he is the best player in the world. Now, we have had a debate all season long about who the MVP should be. Tim Bontemps famously does his straw poll. In his most recent straw poll, it was heavily weighted in favor of SGA. The last straw poll came out today. I don't think that it reflects what happened last night. Once again, heavily weighted in SGA's favor. 77 voters out of 100, Bill, went with SGA. Now, you and I have been pretty big advocates for Joker. The CBSSports.com poll of our CBSSports.com NBA writers was pretty heavily in favor of Joker. The Ringer did one where 9 out of 10 of their people went for Joker.
2 out of 3 of their actual voters.
Yeah. And like people who are watching this in the NBA going like, the narrative around SGA is a really good one. And I think he's a deserving winner. And Joker was asked about this and he goes, I'm playing the best basketball of my life. And if I win it, great. And if not, he's a deserving winner. SGA should win it if not. And I think that's the proper way to go about it. But man, last night is just one of those things where you look at it and go, I don't know.
So
still,
here's the thing. The games that he had missed recently had edged me, I think, by a hair's breadth toward SGA. And then last night's game had me confounded yet again. I will say this. I'm going to make this about Westbrook again. By the way, I also want to we're friends. We've been working together for a while now.
Yep.
I want you to take the opportunity, if you want to, it's your world, to take back every nice thing you've ever said about Russell Westbrook. If that's something you feel like doing
both
later.
of us, you and I were kind of Russ pilled earlier.
Because you lead me. I got to stop leaning into your positivity. Well, I was anti-Paul George a year ago, and you guys, it's going to be great. I'm like, I'm the jerk.
I know. That one was a bummer.
Here's the other thing that Westbrook cost Denver. First of all, every game matters. And credit to Adam Silver and the league office for how much it's a pre-playoffs now because of the play-in and all the things. That win we'll see, but it may be one of the difference makers in the Timberwolves edging out Memphis for that final playoff spot. But also, there's a world where Denver can still fall to the 4. That's a significant loss if it's the Lakers who chase them down. That's the only team that can probably push the Nuggets to the 4. And if you fall to the 4, you got to play the Thunder if you advance in that next round. And so, like, also, and again, I'm not going to – my MVP vote will not be totally decided based on the Nuggets of the 2nd seed or the 3rd seed or the 4th seed. But Denver being the 2 seed, if you really entertain the idea of Jokic being the MVP, I think it's a small but important variable compared to being the 4 seed. And so that Westbrook, that botch, that just the awfulness of it, I think has some impacts on a lot of things, including potentially a little bit the MVP vote, because if the Nuggets are 4, it gives you more of an out. Be like, well, Jokic's really good, but he couldn't carry him that far. Blah, blah, blah. If they're the 2 seed in the West, I'm just saying.
Yeah. I mean, they're 2 games back of the Rockets right now. They're in 3rd place. They're only a half game up on the Lakers. I think that you're right that Joker missing some time. He missed 5 games in a row. He had missed 6 games all season, Bill. And then all of a sudden down the stretch, his ankle flares up a little bit. They're trying to rest him. Then he misses 5 straight games. So after being an Iron Man all season, he misses 5 straight games. I wonder though, like, are we now again looking for reasons to be like, oh, it should be SGA because he missed 5 games? Joker's played 65 games this season. SGA's played 72. I mean, is that like such a significant, is 7 games such a significant difference that we go, oh, it has to be SGA because he missed 5 games?
I sort of told you this was going to happen, but it actually happened. I got the email yesterday, the day before, from the NBA asking, they ask you, will you accept this opportunity to vote? And almost every year I'm thrilled about it. I'm like, yes, this is exciting. It's an honor. I was like, oh God, I got to vote for MVP. Sure. I guess I'll do. I don't know how I'm going to vote. And I'm leaning more SGA now. And last time we discussed this a couple weeks ago in depth, I was leaning Joker. I don't think there's a wrong answer. And I think the idea,
I don't think so
Montez, straw poll, but there's a narrative out there. They're pushing, well, not they, there is this sort of, the zeitgeist right now is there is a wrong answer. It has to be SGA. I don't think it does. And we are, to your point, captives of the moment, right? People are looking at that he missed 5 out of 6 games, not, well, SGA's missed games too, and the totality of the difference isn't that much because recency bias is real. Maybe I'm overstating it, John. If the Nuggets win that game last night, if Joker's 61 points, 10, triple-double, the most points ever in the history of the sport in a triple-double, leads to a win over a Timberwolves team that just had their best March in history and is surging, and Anthony Edwards, who scored 25 points in the 4th quarter in double overtime. If Russ doesn't screw it up, I think last night's game becomes a really interesting, maybe it is Joker. Look at him. He didn't get the win. And so the narrative power is somewhat sapped by what Westbrook did, I think.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, Russ could have helped his guy Joker out to reclaim some of that narrative. But to the point about the narrative, I mean, like, again, this is not an anti-SGA argument. This is a pro-Joker argument. I think SGA has had an unbelievable season, and you know how much I love the Thunder, and, we'll see what happens when they come around in the playoffs, but their regular season has been exceptional by any measure. However, the whole flip-flop argument really hits me. Put SGA on the Nugs. What's SGA doing in that game last night? I'm sure he's having a really good game, but what Joker did was like a lift beyond all others. And if you put Joker on OKC, I don't know if they lose a game. That team would be absolutely outrageous.
Last night's game, and it should be with a W attached to it, is to me an absolutely picture perfect rendering of what value means. Not just excellence, not just greatness, not just being the best. He's the best player in the world, but a value, because there, as you noted, there's no Murray, there's no MPJ. It's a really important game. Anthony Edwards, at least starting late in the game.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, dude, he matched Joker blow for blow. Yes. And you and I were both texting you in the game. There, and this is not a shot at Ant. Ant was amazing too, and he got double teamed and he found other guys on the wing. But there were some plays on the stretch where Joker basically knew that he was going to be double teamed and somehow found guys his guys weren't hitting shots. So he was finding guys with matrix level passes under the basket for easy buckets, passes I couldn't even see watching on television. And
the way he thinks the game is, I mean, he's had so many passes this year where you go, wow, how is the best passer in the NBA the guy that you would look at the Y and go, he's tall, but I don't know if he can play basketball. And he's unbelievable. Like, his vision is incredible. And yeah, Anthony Edwards started out slow. He almost had a triple-double last night, Bill, in 50 minutes. He was exceptional as well while missing Naz Reid and Dante DiVincenzo, who got their hands slapped for that, mini brawl the other night and weren't available. But yeah, the Wolves are on the come. Bummer loss for the Nuggets. We're going to get into the rest of the Western Conference standings. We're going to take a quick break. We have to go through how this race is shaping up. And then Steph Curry, on any other night, Bill, we're coming into today's show and we're going, we got to talk about Steph. Did you see what Steph did last night? Steph was incredible last night. Draymond had a really good game. Jimmy had a good game. The Warriors are on the rise, up to 5th in the Western Conference standings. We'll do that on the other side. This is Beyond the Arc.
Guys, can you feel it? Legends were born here. History was made here. These are hallowed grounds.
Hallowed grounds? The NCIS squad room?
Well, I wasn't talking about that, but I was talking about Augusta National.
All right. It's finally time for the Masters. I hear it's a tradition unlike any other.
All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. You can get us wherever you find your favorite podcast. Please download, subscribe, leave a review on Spotify. If you look below the play button on the Spotify app in full screen mode, you can leave us a comment about the show. Bill, last night, because the end of mid-March, as we're waiting for the regular season to wrap up and for us to get into the playoffs, it's always kind of like a little bit of doldrums in the NBA. I feel like the fever broke last night. Last night was one of those nights where everybody was like, wow, this is so good. And I'm now so excited for the end of the playoff race into the play in the playoffs. So it was really great. So while all that other stuff was happening, prior to that, you had Steph Curry in a game against Memphis that Memphis really needed because they've been in a free fall. Womp womp. They didn't get it. Warriors end up winning by 9 in Memphis. The Warriors have now won 3 in a row and 7 of their last 10, while the Grizzlies have lost 4 in a row and 12 straight against teams over 500. We'll get to the Grizz in a second. Bill, Steph goes for 52, 10, and 8. He hit 12 three-pointers last night. He was 2 threes away from Clay's NBA record. This is a guy who also missed a couple games recently with an injury. He's back. I was asked on HQ yesterday, like, how big a deal it was for him not to be like fully injured because he had like a little bit of a back pelvis issue. Now all of a sudden he's back. With the way they're playing defense and Steph shooting like this, absolute contenders out of the Western Conference.
I was talking on the radio this morning about our champions draft yesterday, and the big 3 went off the board early, and you took Denver with the first non-OKC Cleveland Celtics pick, and I took the Warriors next.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. They feel like my takeaway from last night is that every one of those teams that played, other than maybe Memphis, although this shouldn't be the case, can make a run of the conference finals. At least they're good enough. And so are teams that we're not talking about. But I think for me, the Warriors are the best team in the NBA that aren't the 3 obvious choices for all the reasons you talked about. And I'll just add, when Jimmy Butler and Stephen Curry are both in the lineup, the Warriors are 18-2.
Yeah,
that is.
When they both play. They've been excellent. Jimmy was great last night. He went for 27 and 6. 4 assists, 3 steals. Draymond had a triple-double with 2 steals and a block. He looks really good. So the Warriors now, Bill, are up to 5th in the Western Conference. They are 2 games back of the Lakers for 4. A Lakers Warriors 4-5 matchup would be super compelling. A Nugs Warriors 4-5 matchup would be super compelling. One of those teams, whoever doesn't end up in the 4, moves up to the 3. Now they've got potentially the Grizz or the Wolves, although we'll talk about playoff probabilities in just a second. And by the way, Warriors play the Lakers in LA tomorrow night. That's going to be must-see appointment viewing television. Bill, they started out 12-2. The wheels came off a little bit. They end up in this trade of convenience with Jimmy Butler. Now all of a sudden they're taking off like a rocket ship. I mean, look, the Grizz are going the other way. If you're the Warriors, you have to feel really good about the way that you're playing back. Momentum, I think, really matters as you're going into the playoffs. And right now, I don't know, is there a better team on a better trajectory in the Western Conference than the Warriors right now?
I mean, I think the Timberwolves are an interesting case study just because if you look at their record by month, they have progressively been getting better, and they were red hot. They were red hot in March. If I already said this, apologize. Sometimes I can't remember, John, what I say on this podcast and the radio
show. We use
a
lot of words. We use a lot of words.
11-3 in March is the best March that the Timberwolves have had in franchise history. That's what Minnesota's coming off of, and that's the momentum that they carried through last night with the help a little bit of Russell Westbrook. But other than those, the Warriors are right in that group. They're right in that mix. And I think that if you're Golden State, you just have more reason to believe that your ceiling can be higher even than Minnesota's because, as you noticed, Steph Curry just had a historic game, and he set all kinds of records for his age and closed the gap on Jordan for most 40-point games over age 30. I think he's 3 behind him now. And just all the accolades. Steph is Steph, again, has been. Draymond has been able to be Draymond again. We've discussed the fact he's the betting favorite to be Defensive Player of the Year, and all of that is because they've got Jimmy Butler doing Jimmy Butler things. If you include Draymond and what he brings to the table, and you should, there are 3 superstars on this Warriors team, and they have played it like that for the last 20 games. So I'm with you. I'm not going to go so far as to say the Warriors are favorites against the Thunder, but the idea the Warriors can't beat Oklahoma City, and this is not an anti-OK City thing. I know how good that team is.
Yeah.
The Warriors can beat Oklahoma City. They're not going to be favored, but they're good enough.
They have been playing with those 3 incredible basketball. Right now, as they move up into 5th in the Western Conference, their playoff probability, according to Basketball Reference, to finish in the top 6. They're favored to finish in the top 6 now, about a 60% chance. Your Wolves, Bill, 67% chance to finish in the top 6, which means because the Grizzlies, and we'll get to them in a second, which would have the Clippers and the Grizzlies in the play-in because the Grizzlies are going the other way. I want to just spend a little bit more time on the Warriors, though, before we go to the Grizz. Draymond absolutely is playing at a Defensive Player of the Year clip. I want to run something past you, though, because it goes back to the 65 game threshold and how artificial this whole thing is. Draymond has been awesome. No doubt about it. Again, not an anti-Draymond argument here, but my guy, Michael Pina, put this on Blue Sky today, and it broke my brain. I couldn't believe this. Wemby has not played a basketball game, Bill, since February 12th. So almost 2 months, right? 7 weeks. He has 40 more blocks than anybody else. Still.
I mean, Wemby's injury, his blood clot issue.
Defensive player, though.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, but he can't win. So there we are.
I know, but this is the whole point about the 65 game threshold being artificial. If prior to them implementing this thing, right, we would have just, you and I and everybody else who pays attention or has a vote would have just been who's the best defensive player this year? And we all would have landed on Wemby. I guess at some point there's a diminishing return. And if, you only played 30 games or 40 games or something like that, maybe somebody would go, that's not enough. I'm going to use my judgment here. But I think that we'd all be in agreement that if you're going to take anybody, you said, give me the best defender for my team. I'm starting a team right now. Who's everybody taking?
I mean, you're taking Victor Wembanyama. By the way, I have a solution. When you were talking, I just fixed this. You ready? You have to get the CBA, the Players Association involved. What if you you eliminate the 65 game threshold for awards, but you have to hit that threshold for the part of awards that kick in max contracts in. So if we feel like Wembanyama was good enough as voters, we can decide that because we're not a part of these organizations. But the NBA and their power can limit the ability for guys to make the maximum amount of money based on sort of where they're at to avoid the idea of tanking. Because players are a lot more likely, I think, to avoid tanking if their money's on the line than if third-team All-NBA is.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting idea. And I think that a lot of voters that, you're a voter. I've talked to other people who have had votes for a long time. And one of the things that has been a sticking point, like something that's a little bit worrisome, point of consternation, is that this vote does have a financial impact on these guys. Like you're messing with guys' money, and it would be really great if we could untether those things and just be like, we're just going to vote for like the basketball that we think is good. And then you guys figure out the money over there. We don't want any part of that. Our guy F Montana on YouTube brought up a really good point when we were talking about whether or not the Warriors, if they end up in a series against Oklahoma City, and at present, it would have to be if they end up in the 4-5 matchup, to get out of the 4-5 matchup, it would be the second round against Oklahoma City. You and I both think they wouldn't be favored, but they'd absolutely have a shot. He points out that they already have won 2 out of 3 against Oklahoma City without even having Jimmy Butler on the team. So man, what a fun series that would be. But I want to get into a little bit of the Grizzlies here. Because the Grizzlies, Bill, are really kind of falling apart. Tomasi Salo has inherited this thing from Taylor Jenkins, and it has not gone well for them since the crossover. Ja was good last night. Ja played, although he made some gestures that were perhaps questionable. But
can we just talk about it? Why are you doing shooting gestures at the Warriors bench?
I don't know,
bro.
Evidently, Buddy Hield had made a similar gesture, I guess, and then he decided to do it back. But Buddy Hield also hadn't been suspended for a big portion of the season for, having a gun and doing social media stuff. So like just something to think about there, Ja. But yes, he was very good in the basketball last
night.
To
think about.
Something to think about. Triple J, he's been good all season. He was inefficient last night, but still, you take what you can get from him. And then Desmond Bane was also good last night and disrupted defensively, but none of it came down to them winning the basketball game, Bill. So I don't know what you do here if you're the Grizz, who are all of a sudden kind of free falling and spiraling. And as I mentioned, Basketball Reference has them tumbling into the play-in.
I mean, if you want to go glass half full, I guess, right? The Warriors defense is pretty good, and Dre's playing at a high level. And the Grizzlies flirted with a 50-40-90 game. They weren't quite there in field goal percentage or
free throw shooting,
but they're close. And they score, 125 points?
Yeah.
I mean, the reason they lost is because Steph Curry scored 51 freaking points. I mean, it was like very similar to the Jokic thing. But glass half full, and I don't think it is full, or maybe the glass is half full in Memphis, but the glass is cracked because of what they did to Taylor Jenkins. They did, like John Morant was awesome. And just it's a reminder that when he's out there, he is one of the very many players in the NBA and a whole bunch in the Western Conference who on any given night, not this night because of Steph, can go out there and he can make you competitive by his mere presence. Memphis is really good. My main takeaway in this, and I know there's Memphis drama, is just how great the Western Conference is. Because that game by John Morant, that performance from the Grizzlies should have been enough to have gotten their second win over a winning team since February 3rd. And really, the one against the Mavs doesn't count because there was no Luka was gone. Everybody was
zombie Mavs.
It was a zombie Mavs team. But it's not like Memphis gave up the ghost and got rolled by a Warriors team that wasn't trying. This was another heavyweight fight, just like Minnesota Denver. Morant just wasn't able to swing quite as ferociously as Ant and Joker and Steph. But I mean, it's still a pretty good game from Memphis. They just ran into Steph Curry doing Steph Curry things.
But what a kick in the junk it is that you have a pretty good game. And then here comes Steph Curry to be like, it's not good enough. Too bad for you. Let's take a timeout, and then on the other side, I think you're right. The takeaway really is how good the Western Conference is. So we're going to talk about that, the playoff probabilities, a little bit more from the Grizz and the Warriors game. That's coming up. This is Beyond the Arc.
We dig it. Do you? The Pro Volleyball Federation on CBS Sports Network.
Welcome back to Beyond the Arc. You can find us on YouTube at Beyond the Arc CBS. Please hit the like button, leave a comment, subscribe. Click that little bell symbol. You'll get notified when we go live. As the playoffs approach, we're going to have a whole bunch of live shows coming up, including next week. Big Tuesday night that we'll get into. I think the Warriors are in that slate, so we'll be live after those games. All right, just a couple more things that I wanted to flag from last night's Golden State game. The Grizz were down 17 in that game, as producer Aaron points out, and they fought back. Right, they kept it close at least. Although again, consolation wins when you haven't beaten a team over 500 probably don't amount to much. Also, I think it's interesting that all season long, Taylor Jenkins was really running a hockey rotation. Steve Kerr was doing it in Golden State where he was shuttling in 10, 11 guys. Tomas Isalo has already shortened the rotation. Playoffs are coming. I don't know if that's part of it or if he just has a different philosophy about this thing. But Zach Edey basically all season long, 20 to 24 minutes a game. Last night, 32 minutes a game in the game, Bill. He had a double-double and 4 blocks. Like, is that a little bit of do we think it's just like he's shortening the rotation for the playoffs, or this is the way he wants to play a little bit differently than Taylor?
By the way, I believe maybe producer Aaron can confirm. I think it's first game that he played 30 minutes or 32 minutes or whatever the mark was.
It would not surprise me.
I think it is. So here's my uneducated, certainly unreported perspective, is that because that has been a big talking point among Grizzlies fans is why isn't he getting more minutes? Who drafted that guy? The GM who just fired Taylor Jenkins. To me, this is a head coach who's just following the orders of the front office is now like fingerprints all over the team. So yeah, I think this is what you're going to see going forward. You're going to see Edey playing more minutes. And by the way, he was really, really good.
When he gets 24 minutes a game, anything around 24 or north of that, the guy's a double-double machine. And I thought earlier in the season that they were just bringing him along slowly because he's a big dude. He hadn't played that many minutes or that many games rather, right? I mean, rookie wall, all that stuff. Like you come into the NBA and all of a sudden, it's a different game, right? You're out there every other night and like, let's bring him along slowly. I thought that was just like Taylor Jenkins trying to bring him along at a certain pace. Yeah, it was the most minutes he had ever played. He hadn't played 30 minutes before, so 32 minutes last night. But yeah,
that's
maybe
crazy.
This is maybe it's something where
Tomas Isalo has a different
idea. Yeah, he is. He was the anti-Tibbs. We'll see where he washes up. All right, playoff probabilities now, Bill. I mentioned the Warriors.
You love
and the Wolves.
these.
I do because
give it to me.
It's almost like we're into the playoffs now, right? Like the end of the regular season is like this little playoff appetizer. And I love seeding, kind of like what you were saying the other day when you were like, you get up every morning and you check to see what's happening with that 6-7 matchup, like who's in the 6, who's in the 7. Well, now the Wolves are favored to end up in the 6, which pushes the Clips and the Grizz into the play-in. How big a blow would that be for the Grizz, though? I mean, this is a team that was at times this season 2-3 pretty comfortably in the Western Conference.
And their metrics, and maybe that's part of the reason Taylor Jenkins isn't there. Their metrics suggest they should be that high. By the way, if you're Zach Kleiman, the problem with firing Taylor Jenkins is now you're to blame. It's your fault if you fall into the play-in. And what a game, Clippers, Grizzlies. I mean, whatever the 7-8 is going to be a freaking incredible matchup.
Clips Grizz would be absolutely incredible.
Oh man.
Clips against whoever the 2 seed would be, or the Grizz against whoever the 2 seed would be. If you're the Grizz and you go from 2-3 in the Western Conference for a big chunk of the season to falling into the play-in to potentially being the 8th seed and having to play your way out of the play-in, and then, oh, by the way, Oklahoma City is your reward, that's a disastrous result.
Right.
I think that is a big self-inflicted wound. And you're right about Zach Kleiman. You go from being just leave this thing alone, see what happens in the offseason. If you decide, you obviously already decided that Taylor Jenkins is not your guy moving forward. Well, guess what? You now have a very convenient scapegoat. You took that scapegoat off the board. Who's going to be looking around this offseason? Everybody's going to be looking at Zach Kleiman. I think that was a massive, massive mistake.
Let me ask you that. All right, so I'm with you that momentum matters, and this is not a team of momentum. I'm just making sure that I'm still right on this. They're still the 6th best offense and the 11th best defense in the NBA. They are still just, by how we sort of measure these things,
by
really
the numbers.
Good team. They have, by the numbers, they have maybe, if not the defensive player of the year, they've got a guy that's going to be on that ballot, right? Triple J is going to be one, probably 2 or 3, but he's going to be a finalist for that award. John Morant, we saw this last night, is still an incredible player when he's out there. Do you still believe that let's say they avoid the Thunder? Are the Grizzlies still capable of making a run? Because I think the Clippers are. I think the Timberwolves are. I think the Warriors are. I think the Lakers are. You think the Rockets are. Not all of them can do it, but I think all of them, other than Houston for me, are capable, right? And it's so matchup dependent. I mean, Denver is great, but the Timberwolves have had their number. They're 4-0 against them this year, and they knocked them out of the playoffs last year. And the Warriors have had the Thunder's number. So I know it's matchup dependent. I'm not I just don't know if I still believe the Grizzlies can do what they should do because of all the dysfunction.
By the numbers on paper, you'd look at it. If you didn't know what had happened over the last month and change, you would absolutely, for all the reasons you just said about their offensive and defensive rating. And by the way, they also have the 4th best point differential in the NBA. I love point differential as a metric of like how good your team is. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good indicator.
5th in net rating, producer Aaron says.
5th in net rating. All of those things on paper are good. You would think, yeah, I'll take my chances with that team. That team has a shot. Bill, the vibes are so bad. Yeah. And having lost 12 in a row to teams over 500, they know what's happening, right? Their coach just got fired and they can't beat a good team. It's not like they're not being asked about it by the media. They're probably being asked about it all the time. And yeah, on top of that, they got to go, well, you just fired our guy that all of us really like what's really happened? I think momentum, the combination of momentum and vibes with this team, I think they're going to be a first round out.
So let's say that they fall to the play-in, which I think we both think they will, and your models say that they will, and they win that play-in game against the Clippers, right? And so I know it's one game, but they beat a winning team. We did it, and there's
the Rockets, a little maybe.
I'm obviously like
they
looking for the Rockets. I think they can beat the Rockets. So you beat the Rockets. I don't know, momentum. I mean, like all this, I don't really buy it either.
It could change. All I'm saying is right now, as we sit here with under like 10 days to go in the regular season, that if I was all of those other teams that you and I went through yesterday when we did our NBA contenders draft, there's a reason why I didn't pick the Grizz sooner and that they ended up being one of the last. I think they were the last team selected before the Pacers, right? Just because we had to have an even number of teams that we selected.
It's so close though.
Pacers gone off an absolute cliff right now, and it's a shame because they do have a good team on paper. As we just wrap up the playoff probabilities here, it looks. Okay. I mean, like it looks like the Kings and the Mavs are heavily favored to be the 9-10 seed here. The Basketball Reference model has the Kings at a 95% chance to be either the 9 or the 10, and the Mavs at a 93% chance. So the Suns, who lost to the Bucks last night, Bill, again, no KD, but this whole thing about like this fever dream that they have in Phoenix about we don't need draft picks for the future, and if we get into the playoffs, we're going to be a tough out. Like this is the worst of both worlds. Talk about sometimes like a best case scenario or glass half full or whatever. They're about to miss the playoffs, I think, and then not having KD and trying to, I guess, move him during the offseason.
They're toast. It's over. I mean, it's all over but the shouting, to quote Rick Bragg. I mean, it's done. How hilarious will it be if the Kings make the actual playoffs? Even Dallas, I can kind of squint my eyes and be like, okay, you're going to lose.
What if the Clips or the Grizz end up crashing out?
Just have could happen. A few years ago, I think it was the Warriors-Lakers played in the 7-8. I'm doing this from memory. And I think the Lakers won that game. And I think the Warriors went to the play-in and lost, right? Like 3 years ago, maybe. If I have this right. So it happens. Like it's one game. And so one game, you can just
it's one game.
Have an off night. The Kings suck is strong. I was going to say, sorry, Sacramento, you don't suck. But I mean, they're under 500. They're not very good.
I want nice things for Sacramento, who are hosting the Oakland Athletics. Now just the Athletics in their AAA ballpark. It's a nice little story. It's a nice little town. I want nice things for the Kings. Before we wrap this up, we should just mention, I briefly touched on it at the top of the show, that the sale for the Wolves has gone through. Glenn Taylor has agreed to sell to Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez. He will not appeal the decision that initially transferred ownership of the team to that ownership group. For the same $1.5 billion price tag, Bill, they get the Wolves and the Lynx. That is, like, not to say that 1.5 billion is a bargain, but that's a bargain. That is like way underpriced right now.
I mean, look, man, this was inevitable once he lost his showdown a few months ago. I think it's good news, but it does resurface. We don't know what this new ownership group, what their actual plans and intentions are for investment, how they're going to run the team, if they're going to put money. It's going to be really interesting because there's a framework there for a really great basketball team. But you have to spend money.
The Celtics went for $6.1 billion. The Wolves are obviously not the Celtics. The Celtics have the history and the pedigree and they've got a much better team. They've got better infrastructure.
What are they worth though? If it's sold, if $3 billion, no more than that.
Value, at least double, right?
3.5.
You're also getting a W team in there as well. Like that is a bargain. I think you and I, if we had really put our mind to it, could have come up with $1.5 billion. We could own the Wolves and the Link right now.
I've got at least $400 to put toward that.
I'll sell my Aviator Nation sweatsuits.
Yeah, you've got 1,000. Where is it? I want you to wear it every show. If I had a Rolex, I would put it on every show. You have the Rolex of hoodies.
Sweatsuits. No, I thought about wearing like a burlap sack today because you guys shamed me so much for.
Well, you felt shame, but I was praising you. I didn't know you were fancy like that.
I fancy like that in my sweatsuit. Right, let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up with team of the night. Some good choices from last night.
Do you want to go first? Because mine is so. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to? Because I might cannibalize.
I'll just take the other one.
I gotta go with the Timberwolves. And look, I know that some of that is undeserved. Is not fair. I just can't get over the fact that Russell Westbrook had the double overtime double debacle, which I hate alliteration.
Really
but
good.
In this case,
trademark.
It really works. Yeah, I'm gonna try. Well, then I can buy an Aviator Nation. That's why I'm gonna trade. I can get the Aviator Nation thing.
Copyright money will come rolling in.
I got it. But it's not just the win, and it's not just the fact that the game ended in such an awful fashion. As fans, Anthony Edwards having that performance.
Awesome.
And just reminding all of us. I don't think he needs a reminder. Yeah. Like the 20, I think it was 25 points in the fourth quarter in the 2 overtimes, the 13 in the fourth quarter, the comeback. And not just that, just going blow for blow against one of the greatest players ever in one of the greatest games ever. And after the game, it was a locker room of Timberwolves who were praising with actual awe Nikola Jokic. There wasn't a put on, including Ant. Ant said, I think he might be the best after the game. Edwards said he might be the best player I've ever seen. To go up, and he meant it, to go up against that and still perform at that level to show that lack of that fearlessness. It's not just a big win for the Timberwolves. It's just a great shot of a reminder that they did this. They got momentum last year. They came on late last year when Cat was there and got hurt down the stretch, and Ant really stepped up, and they made a really deep run. I think it's a huge win and just a huge boost for them at the right time.
It is, and it was also a huge boost for the NBA, right? Because as I mentioned,
you're right.
Like last night was so much fun. Where are all the pearl clutchers? The people who said basketball is broken, the NBA is no fun, the product is bad, the ratings are down. I didn't hear those people talking last night. Those games were fantastic. That was excellent entertainment. And to have Ant, as you said, going blow for blow in a game where he started slow and then he was like, oh, wait a minute, I'm like one of the best players in the world too. Let's do this. That was tremendous fun. I'll go the 7th time, by the way, for the Warriors winning team of the night. I'll take the Warriors. The Warriors moving to 5th place. They're on a heater. 12th time for them winning team of the night. Steph Curry that was a classic Steph Curry. Now, I love when he gets untracked, when he's like, the hoop is so big and it's like one of those games like in the Olympic gold medal game where you're like, oh no, he's going to night this entire team. And he did. And it was fantastic. And I just like, this is another reason why, when you and I have talked about like how many more years does LeBron have left? How much more does KD have left? How much more does Steph have left? I want to drain every last ounce out of those dudes because when they're gone, yes, there'll be somebody else who will step up, but it's such tremendous fun to watch him when he's on that I just want more of it.
Can I just draw attention to the sheer stupidity and the Who Framed Roger Rabbit sense of reality of Wilt Chamberlain on this graphic for people watching on YouTube of the most career 50-point games in NBA history? Steph passes LeBron, right? Gets to 15 over LeBron's 14, and then ahead of me, you have a bunch of guys, and Jordan has the second most at 31, and then it's Wilt at 118.
Second most is dumb. 31. The leader is Wilt Chamberlain at 118.
Dumb.
Yeah. That's what LeBron was.
Are we sure we're not in a simulation? I mean, are we sure we're not in a? I mean, come on.
Before we go, I just want to give an honorable mention shout out on Team of the Night. To the Philadelphia 76ers, who lost again, 9 in a row.
Well, you can't honorable mention.
Honorable mention. They have Bill. They set an NBA record last night. 52nd straight, or not straight, but 52nd different lineup in 76 games. Most in NBA history. They are really going under the limbo bar. They are now 2 games clear of the Nets for the 5th worst record. And with 6 games to play, they're not going to catch the Pelicans, but they're only 2 games up on the Pelicans. So like the Pelicans have the Clippers tonight. They're not going to lose that game, or they're not going to win that game. They're going to end up losing that game. But like maybe the Pelicans stumble into an unexpected win somewhere along the way, and this gets interesting.
Something I heard the other day, and I meant to run by you, just gossip, is that 3 weeks ago, maybe the Sixers won a game they shouldn't have. And I can't remember. You'll know. Was it Toronto? I don't remember the game. But the rumor is, the sort of gossip is that basically the Sixers brass go, what are you doing, Nick? Like Nurse drew up some play.
Trying to win games.
They basically had like the implication being that they had a talk with Nick Like, Nick, you're not getting fired as long as you stop winning games. Since you did an honorable mention, can I just do a preview? And you tell me if this is unfair. On the radio show every Friday, last segment, I give out a really important award. It's called the Bum of the Week. It's whoever the biggest bum in sports is. I can give it to Russ over this, right? He can be the leader in the clubhouse.
It's a tough one. Yeah.
It's all
I mean,
sports.
like, and again, I've really enjoyed the Russell Westbrook Renaissance experience alongside Joker. But man, yeah, that was a tough look for him. I'm trying to think of, you know what? Can I just give you, this is completely off menu and not at all part of our show. I'm helping you with your radio show.
Hit me.
I think the bums of the week should be all of the loser. It's such a loser mentality in the NFL. They have their NFL owners meetings where they're talking about rules changes and whatnot. All the teams that want to ban the tush push because the Eagles are good at it and won the Super Bowl. Schefter was talking about how the reason why they're doing it is because they're jealous of the Eagles, and I agree.
By the way, we didn't talk about this either. Can I nominate the NFL for my own award on my own show for stealing Christmas Day? They have 3 games that are going to be on Christmas Day next year.
Yeah, I know. Well, LeBron said it that even though this past Christmas, the NBA games were more fun to watch than the NFL games, but yeah, it's the NFL. So it's tough sledding for the NBA. Producer Aaron said about the Sixers that it doesn't matter. They're still going to end up with the 7th pick, and they'll send it to OKC. And Cooper Flag will fall to 7. That's very funny. Next week, by the way, as I mentioned, we were supposed to have our NBA draft kind of preview coming out of the NCAA tournament with Adam Finkelstein and Kyle Boone. Unfortunately for them, Joker and Steph went wild today, so we had to push them to next week, but we will do that next week, so be on the lookout for that. And then tomorrow, I'll be back with Sam Quinn. We're going to do, Sam just wrote a really interesting column about late season surges and which ones we can trust. Some big-time Chicago Bulls talk coming our way tomorrow, Bill. You're rolling your eyes. I know you're going to miss it. You can come and join us. Come and join us to talk about the Bulls. That we're going to be live on YouTube tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern. You can find us over there at Beyond the Arc CBS. But for now, for our NBA insider, Bill Reiter, good luck to his Barca team in the Copa del Rey coming up. I'm John Gonzalez. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. See you tomorrow.